Hi, everybody. My name is Carol Schall, and I'm co-presenting today with my friend and colleague, Staci Carr. Our topic today is really to dive into all of the choices that you're facing with respect to return to school, and to talk about how do you manage in-person versus virtual versus hybrid options. And we know that as you begin to sort through all of that information, that raises a whole bunch of other questions around, well, how do I prepare my child or my student with autism for either in-person return to school or virtual learning? And so those are the topics today. I'm going to start out, and then Staci's going to pick up about halfway through. We're good colleagues and we love each other very much, so we're going to step all over each other as we talk. Before we start, though, just a couple of housekeeping reminders. We're recording this session, and we will be posting the recorded session for viewing at a later date. By participating, you're consenting to be recorded. Also, we will edit the session to make sure that your name and information is not shared and to protect your privacy. We'll especially monitor the chat, and with us today, helping us with the chat is Lauren Viteri. If you have a question, please chat it. You're all on mute and will remain on mute. If you have technical issues, today we have Terry Blankenship and Lucian Friel with us. They'll also be monitoring the chat, and they'll be there to assist you with any technical issues you might have. We will have a Q&A session at the end of our presentation, and Lauren will help us with that by reading off whatever chat questions you've posted. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with a cute little video.
My coronavirus hits me so hard. All the teachers say, oh my Lord, COVID is stressing me. All the updates from the CDC, Lysol can't be found. I've looked all around this town. I've had no luck, and these are the things you can't touch. I told you, students, can't touch this. You better pull that mask up. Can't touch this. It's the CDC, not me. Hey, go wash your hands. Fresh new rules and plans. Let's all be safe. Go wash your hands. So move back up 6 feet. You better not cough and you better not sneeze. Sanitation. Hold on. Let me check your tip. Not under your arm like that. Like that. You're all clear. Go to the back. Everybody says that this is too much, and these are the things you can't touch. Yo, I told you. Why are y'all standing so close? Back up. Every time you see me, Dr. Lee is sanitized. I'm gonna keep my hand clean because the cases are on the rise. Now, why would I ever stop doing this while others getting ill? I don't want to be sick. I've been to all the classroom from upstairs into the gym. It's Lee, go Lee, Dr. Lee, yo doc, you're late. Look at the clock, can't touch this. Can't touch this. Get down. 6 feet. Stop. Sanitize.
Oh boy.
So Brenda just said, I love the video. Where can I obtain a copy? It's a YouTube video. We're going to post the presentation once it's done. It has the link in the PowerPoint, but also if you just search Dr. Lee can't touch this, it pops up. So yeah, it's a great little video. It kind of points to some of the stress that we're all experiencing right now and how hard it is for us to figure out these choices. So that's what we're facing. We're really, the word unprecedented has now lost all meaning because we are truly in an unprecedented time. I love this little picture with the Kristen Wiig character. None of these choices are really great. Nobody is looking at any of their choices right now as teachers or as parents and saying, yay. You know, the old commercial that Staples used to have where they had the parent with the kids buying back to school supplies singing, it's the most wonderful time of the year because the kids are going back to school. No one's feeling that right now. And so it makes it very difficult for us as families, as workers, as teachers. None of us has only one role. Almost all of us have multiple roles that we're addressing. If you're a teacher and a parent, you are facing these same challenges. If you are a parent and you work, whether it's inside the home or outside the home, this is a very worrying time. And so when you look at these choices, it becomes very difficult. If you select in-person education for your child, what risks are you taking as a family with regard to your health, with regard to your child's health, with regard to what it must be like to go to school where you can't touch anything? If you're looking at virtual learning, then you're looking at all kinds of issues related to bandwidth in your home. I don't know about you, but I've upgraded my internet access. Then you're looking at, how do I work while my child is going to school? If you're looking at homeschooling, there's a lot of challenges related to, you now are the teacher, and are you going to make sure that you keep your child moving forward and meeting their needs? A lot of families are looking at learning pods, and this is kind of an interesting idea that may hold promise for some of you. A learning pod is where 3 or 4 families band together and decide, we're going to follow specific protocol to keep ourselves safe and each other safe. So each of the families agree, we're going to take temperatures, we're going to monitor symptoms, we're going to report to each other if we have any illness. But what we're actually then going to do is have our children come together to learn in their own pod. And so this could be a learning pod where you actually, maybe among you, hire someone to do the teaching, or maybe you bring those children together. So let's say there's 4 of you in a learning pod, and that's 4 children. Well, you could agree that um, uh, family A's day to have those 4 children in the home learning together is Monday. Then family B's day is going to be Tuesday. Then family C's day is going to be Thursday. And family D's day is going to be Friday. And those children are going to gather together. They're going to be their own pod. They're going to be monitored for health. The families are going to social distance, but they're going to learn together as a group. And so that holds some promise. If the parents can kind of come to agreement there, those parents could take their day off and monitor that learning to make sure that those children are moving forward. But right now, none of us have good options, because what we're trying to balance is maintaining our health, avoiding getting this disease that is really pretty scary, while also ensuring that our children are learning. And so that makes it really hard. When we look at those choices, whatever choice you decide, I really want to encourage you that it's the right choice. There are no wrong choices. You have to really say, this is the best idea for our family at this moment, at this time, with the information that we have. We really want to encourage you, and Staci is going to pick up on this again later in our talk, to maintain your own mental health. There is no right or wrong answer. It's very difficult to figure out. And so all you can do right now is make the best decision based on what you know to be best for your family and your child. So when we think about this time of year, we're always thinking about backpacks. What's going to go in that backpack? What's the list of stuff that we have to purchase? And so this year's backpack is very, very different than the backpack has been in the past. And here I want you to think of backpack not only as the actual physical pack of supplies, but let's imagine you have a social backpack or a skills backpack. If you're selecting some version of in-person learning, your in-person backpack has to include the skill of mask wearing, the skill of managing your own property, because in a COVID-19 world, children really can't share. It's odd because we've spent most of our lives as teachers trying to teach children to share, especially in the world of autism, right? And we focus on sharing all the time with little kids, especially. But in a COVID-19 world, suddenly we're going to be teaching the exact opposite skill. Last year at this time, teachers were talking about how to share materials, how to pass things out, how to share, safely. Now, any in-person learning is going to include a lot of discussion about that's your pencil. Only you can touch your pencil. No one else is allowed to touch your pencil. And in a world where we have children with autism who may mouth objects, that becomes even more important. We also have to teach a lot of hand hygiene and what that looks like and what is safe for your child, for the other children that your child might interact with. And then finally, this whole idea of social distancing. There are a lot of things that we have to learn to do differently in a world where children might be with each other, but not allowed to touch each other. On the other hand, when you think of virtual learning, and many of you are in school divisions where there's hybrid options, where the child might have 2 days a week of in-person learning and 2 days a week of virtual learning, you need to fill both of these backpacks. In virtual learning, you've really got to establish a schedule and a routine for your student. You've got to build that computer attention span to not just play games, but to accomplish the tasks, to listen to lectures, to attend. And then you've got this whole other skill set for individuals with autism that is really hard, which is starting, attending to, and completing assignments. Then there's the whole issue of how do we communicate? How do you communicate with the teacher to let them know what you're doing at home and how it's going? How does the teacher communicate to you to find out, how do I tailor this lesson to fit into the context of your home? And then there's the whole issue that you actually have, if you're teaching, if you are doing a lot of virtual learning, in your home right now, you have a lot of everyday activities that are full of academic content. Anytime that you cook with a child, anytime that you engage in any kind of personal hygiene task, there is math, there is reading, there is social studies, there is science. All of the curriculum that we teach in schools every day is available to your home. And what's even better is when you do it at home, it's more fun. And so there's all of these skills to fill the backpacks that we're looking at. And many of you are going to have to fill both of these backpacks. So let's take a look at how we generally teach skills. Oh, there, my little animated backpack, Dora the Explorer. So when we're teaching skills or filling that skill backpack, if you will, it's always a 5-step process. And so these are the 5 steps on the screen before you right now. You define the skill. And so you might think about some of the skills that I had listed. For example, mask wearing. So if your child is going to spend some of their school time in-person learning, then one of the first skills you want to start right now is teaching them to wear a mask, to put that mask on, to take it off, and also to adjust to more and more time wearing that mask. There is a lot of data showing that mask wearing is absolutely essential if you're going to be in an enclosed environment. And so the first thing you have to do is define mask wearing. And I don't mean just wear your mask. I mean picking the mask up by the loops, holding those loops, placing the mask over your ears if it's an over the ear mask, or around your head if it's an around your head mask, not touching the front of the mask, making sure that that mask covers your nose and your mouth, adjusting the mask to make sure it's fit, tightening the nose metal, the nose piece, and then not touching the mask, and then successive approximation at longer periods of time. That's the level of breakdown of skill. Each step that you would have to follow to successfully wear that mask. You want to have that very clearly in your mind as you prepare to teach your child how to put on a mask, how to wear that mask, how to keep that mask in place, what to do when they go to the bathroom, and how do they take a drink of water? Do they lower the mask? Do they take the mask off? Where do they put the mask when they're eating? All of those things are things that you want to teach. You're then going to, and before I even go on to show and practice, the reason you want those skills broken down is so that you can teach that skill consistently. For children with autism, if you teach a skill wrong, you're going to spend more time fixing that error than you are if you teach it right in the first place. So before you even show and practice how to wear that mask, you yourself want to practice a number of times so you get the procedure down. I know Staci's nodding. We've both been in positions where we've taught children the wrong way to do something, and we've paid for that for months.
Absolutely.
I remember teaching a child to tie their shoes once, and I showed them the wrong way to tie their shoes, and it resulted in them having a lot of knots that made it very difficult to untie. It turned, it set us back literally months, and it turned shoe tying into a very difficult process for that student. I will never forget that. I taught another student to cut paper wrong. Yet again, that led to a long time of having to reteach. It's better to teach it the right way first. So before you start to teach your child how to put on their mask, make sure that you've reviewed the process. Then, go ahead, Staci.
And modeling how you're doing it in front of your child so that you're doing it the same way they are is extremely important, because they're going to learn from you also. So if you do it haphazardly, or if you are in the grocery store and have a chin strap, that is very confusing. So you want to make sure that, as Carol said, you're doing it the same way you're teaching.
And that then you show and practice multiple times a day with multiple people in multiple environments. And so if you're on this webcast right now and you're thinking, oh, I have my spouse who also is going to be teaching mask wearing, you want to make sure that you both are using the same procedure. If you are a teacher on this webcast and you're going to have instructional assistants in the classroom, make sure you talk about it and everybody's using the same procedure. Because yet again, for people sharing the responsibility of teaching, we want to make sure that they also are doing consistent practice. So first you show, and then you practice multiple times a day in multiple places with multiple people. Again, go ahead.
That's a great question, and it pertains to this. Doesn't having the parents teaching skills take away from the school's responsibility to teach skills? Should these be put in the IEP since it's the new normal? And I think to address that, one of the things that I'm thinking of is we want to make sure kids have this skill before they get to school, because that's what safety is, right? We want to make sure that they're able to do this effectively so they're not putting themselves or you in danger. So while it would be an okay IEP goal, we actually want to be doing this before they go to school.
Also, our answer to that question is always both. One of the things that we've learned about students with autism is that they don't generalize skills well from one environment to the other. And so what will frequently happen is if a child learns a skill in this environment, the school environment, they may not perform it at home unless they're actually mindfully taught to do it at home. Likewise, they may perform a skill at home that they don't perform in school. And so we frequently want to, that's why I was just making the point about multiple environments. We actually do want to practice this in multiple environments. The biggest thing that we want to teach about mask wearing, though, is expanding the time. If your child is going to be in school in person, we eventually want them to wear that mask for the majority of the time that they're actually in the school setting. So that may mean that you start out with them wearing that mask while they're playing a computer game for 5 minutes. Then you want to expand that to 10 minutes. Then you want to expand that to not just at the computer, we're going to wear it when we watch television, or now we're going to wear the mask outside to play a little bit. So you want to then reinforce with good job, you're wearing your mask, I really like the way you're wearing your mask, and then expand. And the expansion is new environments, longer time, and adjusting to different situations. Like, what do I do? And this is a big question people have. What do I do if I sneeze in my mask? What do I do if my mask gets yucky because, you know, I like sneezed and now all that gunk is on the inside of my mask? You really want to plan ahead for those and expand so that your child has those skills.
And maybe to multiple masks as well.
Right.
They're just not rigid about one color or one type of mask.
That is also a really important point. I know the Crayola company, especially for younger children, has developed a five mask set that you can purchase. So that, and their masks are coming down in price. Initially, they were pretty expensive, but now they're coming down. I would teach multiple kinds of masks. So why don't you go to the next slide, because I think I've actually stolen my own thunder. I think I have a couple of slides that this slide actually talks about each of those essential aspects and gives you more explanation. And so I'm not going to talk about this one much. Just know that it's here. Here is an in-person example. And again, this is all about mask wearing, which is going to be a really essential skill. We actually are going to go through this later, but we have a video on our website that shows mask wearing and shows 3 different types of masks that that you could have access to. So this is another explanation. But there are also skills for the virtual learning experience. And so eventually we want children and youth to be able to log into the computer, log on to the lesson platform that their school is using, and also do the lessons and the activities that they've been assigned for the day. But we know that most children don't have that skill to start with, especially most children and youth with autism. And so we have to define each step of that skill. We have to break it down into all of its component parts. We want to show and practice, and you can actually do this now. If you were to search the internet, there are already free virtual lessons online that you could access to just begin to practice. Just like at the beginning of the school year, when we don't have a massive global pandemic affecting us, you might practice, what does school look like? How will you say hi to your teacher? How do you move from the bus to your classroom? Those are skills that as a parent you might practice with your child. You might want to do a little bit of practice right now about how learning is going to happen in a virtual world when they're online and meeting with their teacher. And so do a lesson or two, help them through it. Lots of positive reinforcement. Expand that skill from 1 lesson to 2 lessons to a lesson, then an assignment, starting the assignment on your own. These are all skills that you can teach using that same 5-step process.
You know, one of the things I want to add here is making sure that that place for learning is a place for learning. So it's a separate location in a room or separate location in the house. So that becomes like the visual cue that this is where I'm going to do my schoolwork. If your son or daughter has a Chromebook from school, that's the laptop that's going to be used for this learning experience. Now, if you have a computer at home that also has Minecraft and YouTube and access to the internet freely, you're going to have a lot of challenges because it's very easy to click off to Facebook, off to these other things instead of engaging in a lesson. So really making sure that you separate those two learning versus play environments.
Staci's right. Even as workers without autism, we have found that doing our virtual work, it is much better if you have a defined, established space. It becomes very difficult when you're working from home if your workspace is also your leisure space, and it's very difficult to separate the two. So the idea of having a defined space, this is my work chair. This is my work desk. When I'm here, I'm working. I can then transition to leisure time a little more easily, and you can do that as well with your child. So if you have a school assigned Chromebook, or whatever platform, a school assigned iPad, those might be good tools to use for learning, and then your home computer can be where you access games. Staci, I think you've got the next slides from here, right?
Okay, so as we had those, we started off, we talked about all these choices, and there's home, hybrid, and school. Well, no matter what, as parents and as teachers, we are experiencing stress, fear, and trauma. And no matter if you're sending your kid to school, hoping for the best with safety, and knowing that, well, they'll be at school and learning, hopefully effectively, you're still worried as a parent how that's going. Similarly, if you're at home and you have to set up these virtual experiences for your child, or engage in teaching some lessons while you're also working, all of this can be very stressful. In addition to the trauma that we're already experiencing, that is what to expect when you go out to the grocery store, and who might have the coronavirus and who might not. You're walking down the street. Like, all these things add to that stress and fear and trauma. So what we need to first think about is ourselves. But we need to understand what are the important things for whatever environment. How is COVID-19 going to affect you? We need to prepare. It is August 6th. School is going to start soon, and we need to prepare right now, so that when students do go to whatever situation it is, that you as a family and your son or daughter is also prepared to the best of their ability. We need to support each other. We need to support our kids. We need to support teachers, and teachers, you need to support families too, because this is an unprecedented new normal.
You said it, I didn't, Staci.
I know, it makes me cringe. But I think about, if I have a son who's going into high school, and the thought of me trying to teach high school courses or to help him stay focused and not go onto YouTube is pretty daunting, because I actually have a job too. And so how do I support him and make sure that he's doing things at school and also be successful in my career? And so we need to think about all these things and how we're all supporting each other and be engaged. So teachers engaging with families, reaching out, asking those important questions like, what is going to work for you? Not everyone has the luxury of being able to homeschool their child and help them through lessons. Not everybody has the ability to have these pods where they can go to different people's houses and learn. So how can you support families? How can you also support and engage teachers in your son or daughter's learning? So Carol and I talk about trauma a lot, and we need to first identify what this is. And it's a deeply distressing event. And COVID-19 has certainly been that, in addition to all the other things that are going on: economic hardship, racial tensions. All these things kind of build on each other and help make for this storm of emotions that make it very challenging to engage effectively with our families, with friends, with our jobs, and with our kids. Trauma is inevitable. So what we need to do is go back to that previous slide and prepare. But what do we see with autism and trauma? So this is very interesting. You may have a son or daughter or a student who has autism who also is experiencing trauma. But what it might look like are some of those increase in behavior, more sensory sensitivities, more problems sleeping or difficulty learning or solving problems. And it's very hard to parse that out as whether it's autism or it's autism plus trauma or autism plus trauma and anxiety. So we need to be really thoughtful about looking at those behaviors and figuring out, is this normal? Is this kind of how the pattern goes? Or is this something in addition? And if it's something in addition, then we certainly need to address that. And, you know, I think it's important to not correct a behavior if it's trauma induced, right? So if you see a behavior like sleep problems, certainly we want our sons or daughters to sleep. But if it's reoccurring because of stress with school starting or going back to school or whatever, that's trauma. And we need to intervene as a parent and as teachers to ameliorate those problems and really work on providing that support and reassurance to our kids. So the first thing that we need to do is...
Staci and Carol, we have a question from Liz.
Sure.
And she asked, do you think social stories can help your students prepare for the different options?
Absolutely. Social narratives, video representations, all of it, absolutely. And especially for those kids who really like to watch videos, they can watch it as often as they want. And it's a great opportunity to talk through it, pause it, discuss emotions. It's a great teaching tool, and it is very, very helpful. So absolutely. And we have tons of those resources on our website, which we will talk about shortly. Carol?
And that's what I was going to say, Staci, is that we are constantly writing more and more COVID-19 resources. And at the end, when we begin to look at those, a lot of our videos actually are basically social stories to help individuals adjust to, I hate to say it, Staci, the new normal.
Okay, so the first thing you need to do is give yourself grace. You have to take care of yourself first, because you're only as available to your son or daughter or your students as you are to yourself. So you need to take time for that self-compassion, self-care. Take time to, if this is your workspace, leave your workspace, go do something else, take the dog for a walk, put on your mask and visit a neighbor, whatever it is, but make sure that you're taking care of your mental health too. There is uncertainty. We know this from day to day. Just last week, my daughter, who's going to William & Mary, was told, nope, all classes are going to be virtual. You're going, but they're all going to be virtual until September. And that could change today. That could change tomorrow. So it's always uncertain. And so we have to kind of be at peace with that a little bit. It's very hard, but we definitely need to try that. Modeling and practicing flexible thinking. That's another very difficult one, but our kids need that. They need this happens. So if this happens and you have to come back home once you go to school, it's going to be okay, and here's what we have in place. And so even if your son or daughter is going to school full time, the likelihood of them coming back is pretty high. So preparing both sides of your brain for virtual and in person is really important. And hopefully down the road, they will go back to school, please, and learn where they're supposed to.
Please.
Please. And explore those resources that are already available that you have as a family. So whether that is a neighbor who can help out, or maybe there's a code word between you and your spouse that's like, I'm out, I need to go take a break. Can you please help in this situation? Make sure you're doing all these things so that you could be as present for your child or your student as possible. All right, let's take some time here to go through all of our resources. That means I need to unplug my headphones. I need a task analysis for this. All right. Okay. You see it?
Yes. Yeah, I see it. So this is our YouTube page with all of our returning to school resources. And so the very first one is a little video for an individual with autism to understand, here are the changes that you're going to see when you actually go to school. This is for in-person school. And most of our returning to school resources are in person. Our COVID-19 page has a lot of virtual learning resources. You can see it talks about the AB schedule, how do you wear a mask, how do you physically distance. We're actually also developing how to be a friend while physically distancing, and how to, like it used to be that a good friend shared. A good friend would pat somebody on the back, give somebody a high five. Those things are no longer allowed. So how do you do it now in a COVID world? You know, thumbs up, wave, a bow, and yeah, all of those kinds of things to make sure that we're translating what friendship was in a non-COVID world to the COVID experience. We're always enriching this site, and there will be more and more. And this is, I don't know if we want to pick one to play a portion of it. Maybe the AB schedule is the shortest one, Staci.
Welcome to the VCUA's Returning to School with COVID-19 video series. The topic for this video is, what is an AB schedule? Many of you may have noticed that school is probably going to look a little different this year. You may have heard about some of the changes that might happen with your school this fall, such as an alternating or AB schedule. You may be asking, just what is an AB schedule? An AB schedule is actually pretty simple. This means that we divide all the students at a school and put them in either Group A or Group B. If you are in the A group, you would attend school in person on certain days. For example, many schools are having Group A attend school in person on Mondays and Tuesdays. On Thursdays and Fridays, Group A students would stay at home. Some schools may have online work for students to complete on Thursdays and Fridays. Students in Group B would have the opposite schedule. This means that on Monday and Tuesday, Group B students are working from home. Then, on Thursday and Friday, Group B students would attend school in person. If Group A students are coming into school on Monday and Tuesday, and Group B students are coming into school on Thursdays and Fridays, what happens on Wednesdays? In this type of schedule, there will be one day off for everyone. In this schedule, all students in Group A and B can work from home on Wednesdays, so that the school can be cleaned. Many of you may be thinking that this is really different from normal. It is. You may also be wondering why we even have to use something like an AB schedule at all. There's definitely a good reason for the big change this year. Some schools are using an AB schedule to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. Remember, schools can be busy places with lots of people in the hallways and in classes. Think about how many people can be in the hallway in between classes. It would be hard to spread out with so many people at school at once. Using an AB schedule limits the number of people at school on the same day. By reducing the number of people at school, we can use physical distancing to stay healthy. Remember, physical distancing means that we try to stay around 6 feet away from others. An AB schedule also reduces the number of people riding the bus. Some schools may use a different setup for their AB schedule. Some schools might take Mondays off for cleaning instead of Wednesdays, or maybe they'll take Fridays off. Every school will be different. Be sure to find out what your schedule will be like this year.
So
I know this is really different and a big change from what you normally might do for school. So what can you do to help get ready? First, Use a calendar to remind you of what days you'll go to school in person. Be sure to put this in a place that you'll see, like the refrigerator or next to your bed. Next, use a schedule or planner to help you keep track of assignments that are due. Finally, set reminders that help you start, finish, and submit assignments on time when you are working from home. So what else can you do? Ask for help when you need it. If you're having trouble adjusting to the new schedule or need help when you are working from home, be sure to talk with your teachers, your family, and your friends. Be sure to check out our other videos on what's new about school this year, wearing masks at school, temperature checks, and using physical distancing. For more information, visit our website at www.bcuautismcenter.org.
So that's just an example of the way we're building an array of information and resources for families. And as you can see, that's actually kind of its own social story.
With COVID-19 video series. Topic for this video, wearing a mask at school.
Please stop. Please stop.
Can you close the tab?
I'm trying.
Okay, there you go. So, so you can use these, and then from these you could write your own social story. So if you know that your child is going to be on the B schedule, you could write a social story kind of based on that little video about whatever your specific situation is. You can see we have the wearing the mask video. We have the AB schedules, what is physical distancing, how do you judge that you're 6 feet away, all of those kinds of things. Those are mainly designed for students who can participate to some degree in videos, but Staci just pulled it up. We have a lot of other tools as well. We have the narrative, a comic strip conversation, some infographics. The other thing that's at the bottom that Staci just got to, and I think this is an important point, particularly for those of you who are either teachers or parents. Staci, go all the way. Is it all the way at the bottom? I think it is. Nope. I'm looking for the parents and teachers as collaborators.
No, I don't see that on this page. Let me try again.
Well, you know what? Before you leave that page, Staci, while we're here, we could probably review some of the virtual learning tools on here.
Okay. What would you like me to hit?
Well, why don't you go down a little bit and doing my own chores, making my own lunch, doing my schoolwork.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. So this is an example of a video about doing your own schoolwork. It's a little long, so we don't have to watch the whole thing, but
Can you hear it?
So many rules.
it's very quiet.
So quickly for parents and children. Now is a good time to develop better habits at home, including independence with schoolwork. Now that you are not in a classroom with set start and end times, or with a teacher who provides a lot of direction on what to do and how to do it, you will need to learn new ways to adjust and be more independent at home. Some ways you can adjust quickly is by learning a new routine, making a new schedule, and learning different ways of working independently on a variety of tasks and activities. This may feel overwhelming, especially with everything that is happening in all of our communities. But you can do this. You really can. But you will have to be more determined, and you will have to use a variety of different tools. You can use this time at home to work on skills that will help you be more independent, no matter what happens next. Self-determination is a really important piece of learning to do things on your own.
Self-determination means that you have some control over your life and your future. Self-determination also includes believing in yourself. Being more independent is a part of self-determination and is important for everyone. Independence at home can include making your own snacks or meals, doing your own chores, and doing your own schoolwork on your own at home. Self-determination involves things like solving problems, such as asking yourself questions like, how do I get started on this project? Or what are all the steps to get this task done? Another key concept of self-determination is self-advocacy. You may have to self-advocate and say, I need a quiet space to work. Let's look at some things that you can do to help you become more independent at doing your own schoolwork while at home. Let's start with routines. Your routines at home may usually be more relaxed after school and on the weekends. You may be used to coming home from school, doing some homework, and then playing games online, listening to music, watching TV, or hanging out with friends. But with school at home for now, you have to rethink what you do during the day. Learning a new routine and staying in a routine will help you feel better and will help you get things done. With the right routine at home, you can get all the same things that you might get done in a classroom, done at home. Ask your family to help you structure your new routines because your parents and siblings may also have new routines that they need to do right now too.
So this video goes on to talk about different spaces and how to get your work done and making sure that you're on track for the day. So it's a little bit long, and for sure you can certainly skip ahead. You yourself can review it and then pick out the important parts for your son or daughter or a student. That's just one of the other resources that we do have.
What we were just about to talk about was this idea as if you're a teacher and you're bringing learning into the home virtually for your students with autism, or if you're a parent and you're looking for the teacher to help you with return to school or return to learn, whether it's at home, it's really important that you begin to talk about, as a teacher, what are the things that you, or excuse me, as a parent, what are the things that you struggle with at home? So, for example, how do you help your child become more independent at caring for themselves, setting the table, brushing their teeth, using the restroom regularly, getting dressed for the day? These are learning opportunities that the teacher can help you structure to address your child's needs. Maybe you would really love to teach your child to wait for your attention. Maybe your child's a pretty high demand, high need person who, as soon as they need something, they're pulling on you and really demanding your attention. But now that they're working at home and you're working at home, you need to teach your child to wait. These are all things that you could talk with the teacher about, and together you can develop ways to teach your child those skills in the home setting. And so I think that that's really important. I don't know how many of you are 80s children, but the first meme might really hit your wheelhouse. So if you remember the band The Cure, there you go. And then this will end. 2020 will end. COVID at some point will end. We don't know when, we don't know how, but this will not be our lives forever. And so one of the things that we really want to encourage you is to hold on, to do the things you need to do to stay safe, and let's chat about it. What questions do you have? Feel free to use the chat box to type in any questions you might have, or just in general, any comments you might have. And Lauren, I'll make sure you're unmuted. So you can bring up any questions that you see or any comments.
Carol and Staci, there were two questions that you did already address, but to just review them again, talking about teaching skills in both the school and the home, and then also the ideas of utilizing social stories.
Yeah, again, to emphasize the point about teaching at school and at home, one of the there's no other way to describe what we're going through other than a crisis. We are in an international crisis. And yet, as we know, sometimes crises present opportunities. And one of the opportunities that this crisis presents is for us to become much more engaged. Frequently, as parents, we send our kids to school and expect that the teachers will do what they need to do to teach our kids good or well. Likewise, as a teacher, we often think, well, if these parents just have to get these kids here and we'll take it from there. That's probably never been a really good way to face education. The overlap between what happens at school and what happens at home is much more meaningful when we communicate well. And so one of my real hopes is that one of the things that we take out of this crisis when our lives return to what they were previously is that we take out this desire to really communicate, that our IEPs begin to, especially for students with very significant challenges and learning needs, that we really talk honestly about what does that student need to learn to do independently to be a more successful person in the world. And that will involve a much more communicative and collaborative relationship between parents and teachers. I would love to see a day when a parent says, I really could just use 5 minutes to make dinner and my kid is just on me. How do I problem solve that? And the teacher then really begins to engage the family in strategies as well as devise strategies for teaching waiting in school. So.
Well said, Carol. You know, another thing that I think that could be potentially beautiful coming out of this is the opportunity to look beyond academics and look beyond the paper pencil tasks or the didactic learning, and looking more at independence and problem solving in the home and being part of an active member of your family for students. So looking at, like you said earlier, all those academics that we can do from the kitchen or from the backyard or sharing time together as a family. So really thinking about how to build independence for your son or daughter too.
With respect to social stories, so much of the material that we're developing has a very strong social story slant to it. Telling individuals what they can do to cope with this world and giving them what alternatives. And this is a key about a social story. A social story that says don't more than once is not a social story.
Correct.
So it's really, really important that we make sure that when we're writing social stories, we're telling individuals what to do instead of, rather than focusing on the don'ts. Can't touch this, don't touch this, etc. So.
We have a question, Carol and Staci. It states, I'm a preschool RI SPED teacher, and as I brainstorm how to make assessments to get data, I do not want to overwhelm my parents with this process, but I will need their help. When my students are at home, I'm trying to think what my data assessments, etc., will look like.
Oh, that's a great question. Go ahead, Staci.
So there are two things that I think of. One is simple plus minus, like they did it or didn't do it. The other thing is email's a beautiful thing, and maybe having, or even a Google form where it's a narrative so that a parent could answer a couple simple questions and a little narrative about what the day entailed. And from that, you might be able to get some of your assessment data. It might be a little bit more qualitative, but you can see a little bit more progress. And as a parent, I know that it's much easier for me to write down a synopsis of the day, goods and bads, versus kind of keeping track trial to trial, or if my child needed whatever prompt it is to do anything.
I fully agree, Staci, that if you can keep it simple for the parent, if you can begin to look at done or not done, yes or no kinds of data collection systems. And remember, the reason we collect data is not to evaluate the student necessarily, but instead to ensure that our strategies are effective. And so we're definitely, there's no doubt, you can't over the computer do a trial by trial percentage of opportunities given, percentage of correct responses, those kinds of things, especially with learners who are really significantly impacted. But you can collect some qualitative data to indicate to you, is the child waiting better? Is the child calmer at dinner time? And so if you ask the parent to rate dinner time, if that's the goal or the skill that you're working on, that might help you as well.
We have time, it looks like, for one more question. We have a great question by Donna. She states, I'm a teacher of students with severe autism. We're going all virtual. Parents are low income and not tech savvy. Who will help those kids stay engaged at home? Any outside agencies that could help in the home?
That is a great question. Oh my gosh. So I wish there were more resources here. But the first place I would look is the Community Services Board in the area. Families, especially in low income areas, are not going to have access to hiring staff to bring them in. The idea of learning pods might be helpful to those families where, and I'm not sure if you were here earlier when we talked about learning pods, but if those families, if 2 or 3 of those families banded together and could kind of share child learning and child care responsibilities, that might help. Also, now I'm going to say this, but I have to caution you. I have not talked with any school divisions who have considered this because it's fraught with difficulties. But we have a number of paraprofessionals who were formerly hired to provide supports in schools to students with significant impact. And those individuals are presumably to some degree still employed by the schools. I wonder if at some point schools would consider allowing those individuals to work at home with students who are in a virtual environment. And maybe then the parent and the instructional assistant could become a part of the same pod. If that instructional assistant does all of the important health issues related to COVID, they take their temperature daily, they report symptoms that they might have, it's possible that that instructional assistant could deliver more direct student services to a family. So, Staci?
Yeah, that's a great point. The other thing I'm thinking about is really narrowing down the specific tasks that have to happen at home. When there's a laundry list of things that parents are supposed to engage their child with, it can get very, very overwhelming. And if there are things that a student could do that could actually help the family system while still learning, I think that would be very meaningful, whether it's simple chores, task completion,
at the table.
skills. Yeah.
A really nice skill to teach a child with autism who maybe has some significant needs. I would encourage, by the way, the family to use unbreakable plates, but loading a dishwasher is a very structured skill that that you could actually teach a child to do that would be helpful, has a lot of learning components. If you think about what we do at school in terms of putting things in their place, that's what loading a dishwasher is. Unloading a dishwasher, taking things out and putting them in their place. Those are really good skills for students to have. And so that would be a skill that you could teach at home that has an academic value, that really is related to the student with significant needs IEP goals and is meaningful to the home.
Liz states, yes, I was going to ask about this as a paraprofessional. I am happy to work in a home setting, my home or school cafeteria or public area. I was wondering how I apply for this. I work in Henrico.
You know, I'm wondering if your contract is not being renewed or whatever because of COVID-19, I wonder if putting up a profile on like the care.com website and stating, hey, this is my background, this is what I can do, I will take the precautions, this is my training. I would imagine families are looking for that.
Right.
So I would definitely look at care.com.
I see, and we could go on. We're a little over, but maybe just one more question, because I think we've hit on some really important questions. There was a question about how will related services look in a COVID world. Good question. So speech therapy, you can imagine having speech therapy behind plexiglass. Masks are important. I will tell you that I know a lot of school districts are looking for the masks that have the clear panel so that you can see the individual's mouth, but the panel is covered in plastic. My sister happens to be profoundly deaf, and I bought her a number of those masks that have a clear plastic panel, not for her. She doesn't have to talk to people so they can lip read for her, but so that I bought her 10 of them. So what I said to her was, when you go to the doctor, take one of these with you. And if you don't have an interpreter, the doctor can wear it and you can read the doctor's lips and the doctor can still be muted. So, or masked, not muted. Sorry. Getting my platforms mixed up. I think that if I were a speech therapist, I would want one of those masks that has the clear plastic panel. So I could be masked, but I could engage with kids and they could see my mouth and see my face. I think even as a special educator, I would want one of those clear plastic panels so that I could really help students see me. So that might be a mask. They were only $10 a piece, by the way. They were not on the expensive end of the world of masks.
You know, the other thing that I think about with masks is looking, really teaching people to read eyes and doing some early rapport building and looking at eyes, which is kind of challenging for folks with autism, but that's kind of what we're going to have to do right now. I launched the poll, so if you have an opportunity to please let us know. This information is helpful when we are looking for building more of these lunch and learns. They're going to continue for the unforeseeable future, which is very exciting to me.
And I'm placing, Amazon.com, by the way, has masks with the clear window. And so you can go online and just search masks with clear panel or clear window. That was a question that came up really quickly. They're really, really good because you get that protection, but you also can smile and have feelings and emotions. But also, I think Staci is right as well. Practicing looking at eyes and eyebrows and seeing how does emotion look, even as a parent, and you want your child to respond. You know, the mom look is not as effective behind a mask as it was when your face was uncovered. So if you're practicing with your child, practice the mom look with a mask on so that they can kind of see what that looks like. So
when you're in a store and you give the mom look, they know.
Yeah, like put that down. Yeah. So so that's very helpful. Lauren is putting a lot of clear window, clear visible masks on the chat as well.
One more thing, there are also masks that are white, that are washable, very, very inexpensive. And if your students are coming to you in school, maybe an opportunity for them to use fabric markers and decorate their own mask or tie-dye them or anything so they make them unique to themselves, their their own style.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Okay, thank you all for joining
Thank
us this
you.
afternoon. It was lovely having you. And as always, we will post both the face shields. There's a quick question about face shields. We will post this webcast or this Lunch and Learn as well as the PowerPoint on our website.
Our next presentation is by one of our colleagues, Kendall from GMU, I believe, and some families from Northern Virginia, and they're going to talk about parent engagement during this time. And as always, if you have any questions, you know how to get to us and our website. So have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.